Hang on, just imagine if this was true of the no case, it'd be all over the front page of every newspaper and every bulletin. Now, apart from you and Frank Brennan, no reference. No reference of this plagiarism, no reference of people being eminent jurists being airbrushed out of history, and what's worse, as you say, Australians have been led to believe, and Indigenous Australians as well, that the Uluru Statement was homegrown, when in fact the ideas are not original.
Look, Frank Brennan is a Jesuit priest, and his approach in his new book on the voice, or on the proposal for a voice, is very, very gentle on this aspect. He doesn't drive home the point with as much force, if I may say so, of what I wrote in The Australian about this, but that's the reality. He outlined the facts. The facts are clear. This was lifted holus bolus from international jurisprudence and presented as something homegrown, and it's not.
And the author has been airbrushed out of the history of the document. I mean, the source, this is the issue. We've got to repeat this and say it over and again. The source of Uluru's big idea about sovereignty and the rest of it hasn't been acknowledged. Now, this was once called plagiarism. You've called it cultural appropriation.
I think that's a more accurate way of describing it. It's an attempt by Indigenous people to appropriate a way of thinking about sovereignty that had nothing to do with Indigenous people, but arose in Africa and was the creation of a very gifted judge from the Republic of Zaire. And it's really unfortunate that school children are not being taught the facts.
This has been taught in schools everywhere and repeated ad nauseum in defence of the voice. Couldn't we ask a couple of questions here, Chris? Shouldn't children and the public be taught the truth, that the Uluru Statement is not entirely original and not entirely homegrown? Shouldn't they be taught, and shouldn't the public know that the Uluru concept of sovereignty as a spiritual notion is the work of others? And originally, as you said, referred to Africans in the Western Sahara, not Aborigines and Torres Strait Islanders.
Look, I think that's the bare minimum. If we're seriously going to vote at a referendum and on an idea that came out of the Uluru Statement from the heart, we should at least know where this idea came from. And it's not an Australian idea at all.
Well, we give credit to that splendid scholar, priest and lawyer Frank Brennan for tracking this down, the son of the late Sir Gerard Brennan, the author of the leading judgment in Mabo. Chris, isn't the answer here to acknowledge the truth of what the former Treasury John Stone has said, that it's not the lack of detail on the voice that risks losing the nation's goodwill, but rather, his words, the unprincipled push to destroy the constitutional foundation whereby all Australians are equal? I would have thought that's unarguable.
He's right. Equality of citizenship is what this referendum is all about. That's the real issue. Do you want equality of citizenship, or do you want the Gama model? And bear in mind, this is one model of the voice. There's every opportunity for the government right now to change the Gama model, to reduce some of the overreach in the model that's been outlined.
But
at
even
the
so,
Gama
you
Festival.
shouldn't be altering the Constitution based on race, surely. I mean, you shouldn't be, as John Stone says, inserting into the Constitution provisions endowing one set of Australians with rights which aren't available to the rest of us. I would say under no circumstances, forget the minor pieces at the side, under no circumstances could we vote yes to this.
At the moment, the proposal would give one race-based body the ability to have a say on all laws, not just those relating to Indigenous people, but all laws and all issues of public policy. Now, that's massive overreach. At the very minimum, you could say there might be an argument for allowing an Indigenous representative group to have a say on laws that refer only to Indigenous people, but not to laws that affect the broad community. And that's what we're looking at.